What does the Australian-based CSL, the Japanese-owned BioLife, and the Swiss-owned Octapharma all have in common? These companies and their subsidiaries and several other internationally based companies have taken to urban areas and grown the plasma industry to an astonishing $24 billion industry. The United States supplies 90% of the entire world's blood plasma from an estimated 860 plasma centers across the country. This is, again, behind the scenes of what seems like you giving to a charitable cause. Again, an insidious business that is shaping up an industry that, like many others that have formed in this country, is facing little competition. And the competition that does begin to come about, it faces immense challenge. And one of the challenges, or the people who are being challenged, is an African-American brother by the name of Raquan Stafford. He is the owner and CEO of CP Plasma Center in College Park, Georgia. And he filed a complaint in 2020 that made claim against these corporations. The complaint is against 4 of the world's largest European-based human blood plasma biotherapy companies and their subsidiaries. The problem he's facing is that because they are the main placeholders in the industry, all of the required permissions that he needs to fully establish his business and grow needs to be approved through these entities that are already established outside of the country, who are, again, having great success operating in this industry with themselves and their friends and their own cronies. So an interesting person to know. Black history still being made. You can check out this case if you are interested. Again, it's 197 pages as you can read, but the docket number is there for you to check out. And again, this is behind the scenes. Not many people know about what's happening with this industry. So with looking at what's going on behind the scenes with the business aspect and the monopoly that's being formed, we have to look at what's happening inside of these plasma centers. And just as I strongly recommend we do the same with dialysis centers or any institution that kind of comes out of the ground from nowhere in our communities. So are these plasma centers harmful to our community? 80% of the blood from these donations, again, that make up 90% of the world's plasma, come from people of color. What we found is the $800 a month average that's promoted in commercial on YouTube, as a gift for your time, it is 5 times higher than the minimum wage. So we have a couple of things that play out with the quote choice to donate plasma. You have two factions of people who donate: those who think they're doing some service or good, to serve, their fellow human, and those, again, who see the income potential because they are in survival. They have these financial straits, and the extra income allows them to make the ends meet. So what they found in studies across the Midwest, I think it was specifically Ohio, was that the income from the people who go into the centers on a regular basis, it makes up about a third of the monthly income. And to add fuel to the fire, it has also been shown that these centers strategically locate in urban areas that have low incomes. So we have to explore what has been for our people a dark history of medical abuse. Again, that's still underway with the advent of technology, finding new ways to usurp resources and attain free labor. But back to task, I'm just going to read from what's been typed so you can read along. It is easy to gloss over and overlook the reasons for concern with something as innocent as blood and plasma donations, especially when we are exercising free will for the cash earning potential in our minds. We must remember some of the atrocities that have been perpetuated to poor and melanated communities via science and the medical industry. It was 1844 when Anarcha, Lucy, and Betsy, 3 women who were at the time enslaved in Alabama, they were experimented on without anesthetics or drugs to numb the pain or help with the pain by James Marion Sims, who is labeled as the father of gynecology. Okay. And then we go fast forward into history where we have the syphilis testing and experiments under the Tuskegee experiment. And what people, I don't think, connect with is the fact that this was not like a one-time thing, or it wasn't a 1-month program. This Tuskegee experiment, where they injected these men with syphilis and then watched them deteriorate without curing them, this was 40 years worth of studies that was conducted under the Center for Disease Control in the United States Public Health Service. And the final thing that I want to note, again, just 3 of many things that we can go back and get and learn. This, again, is probably one of the most monumental because it has given the foundation for almost all of the medical sciences. And that is the story of Henrietta Lacks. There has been a book, I know, written, surely. I'm not certain if there's a movie, but her story is very interesting. The oldest and most commonly used cell in all of scientific research is what they call the Gila cell. And the little known history behind the Gila cell is that it was taken from this 30-year-old woman who was suffering from cervical cancer. And what they noticed was that her cells continually regenerated. So it was kind of the first glimpse into the potential for immortality. The immortal Henrietta Lacks is, what they call her. And again, this is before they had her sign HIPAA. They weren't asking her if she gave her consent for her biological property to be, again, experimented on and then standardized to a fact or a place where it is all across the world. It has pioneered all in vitro biotechnology. Again, we are in a place right now where you keep hearing bubbling ups of things like organ trafficking and these issues with gender and men who want to have babies, and where are they getting these uteruses from? You know, as we simultaneously have Black women who, you know, are disappearing. Again, just a avenue to look down as we connect the power that's already been discovered through the womb. And again, what the Gila Cell taught us with the in vitro tech. But not only is it opening up the possibility for, you know, life to come from things that it was not ordained to come through, it's also serving as the backdrop for many of the vaccines that are promoted to us. So again, when we talk about DNA and what that means when everybody is having a vaccine that's backed off of the genetics of a Black woman. So I'm certain there are more, but the two that I know for certain are the polio vaccine, which was one of the first, and the human papillomavirus, HPV. So we have looked at the plasma industry. We have looked at, again, some historic framework for why, you know, this industry focused primarily in Black and Brown communities may be something we should pay further attention to. We have to know why blood is important in this plasma and what it's doing. So again, reading directly from this, well, I didn't read directly from it the first time, I don't think, but again, follow along if you can. Blood is, of course, we know, a body fluid. It delivers the necessary oxygen and nutrients to your cells, and it transports the waste, the metabolic products, away from those same cells. These red and white blood cells are suspended along with platelets and that blood plasma that we're speaking about. Plasma constitutes 55% of the blood's fluid, and it's made up mostly of water. And it contains the sugar glucose, proteins, mineral ions, hormones, the blood cells themselves, carbon dioxide. Plasma is the main medium for excreting and transporting cellular waste. The whole blood is composed of about 54% plasma, 45% red blood cells, and less than 1% of white blood cells. When it's separated from the blood, I think we saw a picture that was actually what it looks like. It's a yellowish liquid, and its role in our body is to protect us from infection and blood disorders. What it's being used for, they say right now, is to treat burns and blood transfusions for persons suffering with liver failure, and again, to develop new treatments and therapies, usually for people who are not of African American descent. So to know that, we know the practical physics of blood and plasma. Why is it important? What is happening behind, you know, this? Everything in our body has a purpose. So what purpose does the plasma serve? So I'm going to read from this, and then I'm going to kind of just share my theories, because again, I am not able to research these things. These are just the insights that I have into things. So the metaphysics of plasma. Plasma is the gas that makes up the sun, the stars, lightning, static electricity, the aurora borealis, which is that beautiful light show that I think happens at the North Pole. The ionosphere, some flames, all of this is plasma. It's a highly conductive electromagnetic vehicle. So that's a lot to unpack. A highly conductive, which means it's always flowing, electromagnetic, composed of electricity and magnetism repulsion energy, and acts as a transport system, transporting thoughts, feelings, again, picking up a vibe, on higher levels, information, so again, just depends on how this energy works on the person. But this light spirit body, which again, this picture is a graphic design, but it's a good representation. It's called the Merkaba. It would be that shape going from its head to his shin, and then extending out around his arms. That kind of reminds me of the way the Vitruvian Man in that, what is it, a Leonardo da Vinci drawing, which talks about the symmetry of the man. So that energy that's represented in this graphic is kind of like the Merkaba, or the light body ship that surrounds us. And again, this energy field, we call it the aura. It's made up of life force energy, the life force energy that makes up all of the invisible world. We've now it's called it ether. It's been called chi or prana. And what's been found is that it enters the body through the top of the head. And they say this is the reason there's a soft spot when babies are born. There's a hole there at that embryo phase. The major prana flows run through the center of the body. And they say the tube is about the size of what would be your thumb and your forefinger connecting together. And this tube feeds those chakras, which is in this picture represented with these colors that run up the center. It runs through into, it's arguable, between 7 and 12 energy centers known as chakras, some that extend beyond the body into the earth and above the head. From there, it flows into these chakras. And again, that word is Sanskrit for turning wheel. This connects the spirit with the body. It is the substance of spirituality. This part of our blood or being, based on, again, I think receptors, has the ability to connect us with the world around us. It's the sun's energy, the earth's energy, higher dimensional consciousness, which is what they would call, alien or extraterrestrial. Again, or if you look at it from the religious perspective, the higher selves, the angels, the ancestors, the guides. These are all activated from the DNA, which is, again, carried in the blood, and it connects you to your ability to evolve due to the ability to tap into aspects of the heart, which I am still personally mastering. So plasma is, again, way more important than the 30-second YouTube commercial gives insight into, again, they attract you with money. I personally have a theory that this is what is helping to keep us disconnected. Right now, there are many things that I think are working for a common goal of not having us to be connected to our highest, most authentic selves. So I call this interference. And those people who are, again, not subject to the interference at those higher levels through maybe spiritual attacks and issues of a spiritual nature, before they can even get into that place, I think the having to make ends meet is the first way of even destabilizing the ability to get to a higher level of consciousness or awareness. So my theory is that because you have mostly young Black men who are utilizing these industries, not only are they gaining access to the DNA and the ability to, do technologies like, the cloning and the things that are coming up in our sci-fi reality world, but it also dries up this living spiritual water that is flowing through us. And again, as it's flowing, it should be conducted electricity. And because it's conducting electricity and you're moving around in the world, it's operating as a magnet. And again, this is a lot easier to understand in this new age world where the law of attraction is the thing that's running crazy. So again, it's like being dried out, which lowers your ability to receive higher communications. It lowers your vitality or your life force. So those are all just, my theories. There hasn't been any studies into things like that just yet. And I'm not certain that there'll be anytime soon, seeing that they are they're having a pretty tight fist on the industry and it's making a lot of profit right now. But it's something that I'll continue to think on, and Most High Spirit willing, we'll be able to share any insights or further things that I think are relevant and important. So that concludes my expose, my brief insight into the plasma industry. I hope that it was helpful. I hope you learned something. I hope I've inspired you to take it upon yourself to look into something that you have been curious about. So until next time, peace, love, light, cover, and you guys have a happy holiday season.